it is a real break. And I think people are saying, well, Labour and Tories will come back in the next couple of years, but I don't think they will. I think we've got a 3-year cycle for councillors. And I think in those local municipal elections, I think that the Greens and Reform will continue that sweep.
Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Mike. This is tplmedia.ca. Don't forget to subscribe and tell a friend about it, for goodness sake. And don't hesitate to comment. We love the comments. We get a lot of ideas for shows and what we should be talking about, specifically from the things you're saying. So please participate in that. We are joined now in the UK, live from our London studios. Our lead correspondent, Steve Swift, joins us. Steve, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. It's there's a lot to talk about in politics in Britain, so I'm delighted to be here. Pip, pip, tally-ho, and all of that.
Well done. Oh, pretty good, eh? So, as we cross the pond, we like to do this. We kind of do it monthly now, and I appreciate Steve for doing this. But essentially, we have certain commonalities, and it's interesting to keep an eye on each other. Of course, Steve, the last time we talked to you, we were on the doorstep in the UK of what we would call here in Canada the municipal elections, and now they have occurred. And it's very interesting. There's been pushback on some of the major parties. There's been certainly some upheaval, and I would imagine if I was Keir Starmer, I'd be a little bit worried about my future in England, to say the very least. But I'm going to hand it off to you, Steve, if you don't mind, to kind of set the stage of where we were and where the elections landed us.
Yeah, I mean, this was last Thursday. So Thursday into Friday, a third of municipal or council elections or councillors were up. And it was a terrible night for both Labour and the Conservatives. So two-party politics may well be over in the next 3 years as far as municipal elections go. Now, elections to Westminster and Parliament are very, very different. So let's not get too excited. But it was good for two smaller parties. So it was good for a party on the left, the Greens, and it was good for a party on the acceptable right, Reform.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the England councils, of course, Reform just pulled away. 1,454 votes, I think, was the final tally there. The Labour Party coming in at 1,068. So very interesting, of course. And then the Conservatives and the Green Party, even in the England councils, were very, very close to one another. And as you point out, you've had a two-party system at the parliamentary end for some time, but this looks like there might be some cracks in that granite. And is that the indicator that you think the England councils are sending to the top?
Yeah, I mean, people think that generally they're not being listened to. I think it's probably too simplistic to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Outside of the big cities, you're looking at Reform. And in the big cities, you're looking at Green, or a combination of no overall control because you've got lots of different parties. But this is a big moment. Reform was saying before the votes were counted around 10 o'clock when polls had closed, 1,500 seats would be good for them. A few hundred councillors, and I said, 1,500, you're joking, aren't you? Well, as you say, they almost got there. Wow. Greens did extremely well in my local area, Manchester, extremely well. So it is a real break. And I think people are saying, well, Labour and Tories will come back in the next couple of years, but I don't think they will. I think we've got a 3-year cycle for councillors. And I think in those local municipal elections, I think that the Greens and Reform will continue that sweep, particularly the Greens.
I would imagine that has a lot to do with what they do in their 3-year terms, right? So if a lot turns around quickly in those municipalities, and in those councils, then I guess they'll keep a position. But it is nice to think that there would be a change that takes hold for some period of time anyway. I mean, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. You'd like a government to hold responsibility for a period of time to get something done. What do you think brought the Greens and the Reform Party to the top in such a volume?
I think just not listening to people. I mean, Keir Starmer is our Prime Minister, is a big feature of that. People don't feel they trust him. They feel he's trotting out the same lines. We need to go further, faster. I will not walk away. I take responsibility. He's done that in a big make or break speech this evening. More of that in a minute. But generally, people don't feel listened to. And so parties that are outliers. So the Greens haven't had that many councillors in Britain. A few. Reform have done better in municipal elections in this country, but generally they are outliers. So why don't we try them? What harm could they do? It's interesting you talk about they've got a year, 2 years, 3 years, particularly with reform, because they've taken control of some councils. So that is going to be very interesting. Particularly, I think they've gone an electoral cycle too early. And I don't think they have that kind of experience. And we're gonna see how that plays out. Because in a year, maybe 2 years, people might say, well, they've taken over, they've done nothing, or they've done a really bad job of it. Of course, they might be superb, but
we
that's
don't have
not
a
what
lot
I'm
of
getting.
patience. As voters, we don't have a huge amount of patience. Sorry, and we'll get you back. We don't have a huge amount of patience. 3 years, nothing gets done. I've got to find. It's human nature. But, the patient voter might actually see results in their communities if they start to show, as you point out, this might have been too much, too fast. But let's hope that they have the wherewithal to actually execute what they're promising. And what was people want to be heard. But what were some of the kicking sort of issues that Reform had on their side?
Mainly, give us a chance. We've never done this before. So we're a party that are an outlier. We're not really like other parties. And they've got out. They've mobilised and they've got out. Just like the Greens. When I was working with the Labour Party a few years ago, and we had Jeremy Corbyn, remember him? Still around, and Momentum. And we suddenly got an enormous influx of people knocking on doors. And we thought, this is 3 times as many people. And I said, after that election, they're going to go back to the Greens. You've got to keep them. And people laughed at me. And now, a few years later, they're reaping that whirlwind because all of those people who are on the left of politics are going to the Greens.
Okay, so now I feel so badly that we find ourselves not just in England, but in many parts of the world, certainly the countries that we deal with, where elections is a popularity thing, and that the government in power is so out of control that you can win election based on, hey, you never know, you never tried us. That's a pretty serious state of affairs, Steve.
It is, and you have to quite charismatic but very different leaders. For the Greens, you've got Zach Polanski, who is, he's quite clubbable. He's fun to talk to, says some extraordinary things, fiercely intelligent, clearly. On the Reform side, you've got good old Nigel Farage, good to have a pint with, wears a flat cap and tweeds. He's all right. He's my mate. So you've got those two kind of big charismas. In the middle of that, you've got Kemi Badenoch, who's the Tory leader, who doesn't seem to have as much charisma, and poor old Keir Starmer, who seems to be on his last legs. He's had a big announcement tonight, or a big speech
let's maybe. Okay, you know what? I'll address quickly the other parliament, Scottish Parliament. SNP pulled away in a huge, but we will get to that announcement in a sec. SNP pulled away in a massive way. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, because John Swinney came into, he's the leader of the SNP. I mean, he's well known and well liked and steeped in politics, in Scottish politics, but he came in to steady that ship. And I thought that it might fracture a little. Thought Reform might do better. I didn't think Labour would do that well. But he's trusted, I suppose, and they would be on the left of Westminster, really. So they're still trusted in there. That's not to say they're going to go independent, because that's still a discussion that they're having and they still need to win that argument. But I'm surprised about that, very surprised.
And of course, the Senate municipal elections. Now, this shocked me. The PC party came away ahead, with Reform trailing not too far behind, but with not a really good hold on second place, truthfully.
Yeah, that surprised me as well, because they were really pushy. And Plaid Cymru, who are the winners. The real story is that Labour have lost control of the Senate in Wales, which they've had, is it for over 100 years? You talk about politicians like Nigel Farage, who was the architect of the NHS. All of that steeped in that cauldron of Welsh politics, and Labour have been running that for many, many years. Yeah. And
they have nothing seismic on the books, hardly. I mean, honestly, no. I almost won that election, and I didn't even run up against Labour. But okay, so now let me just ask you this: the Scottish Parliament and then Wales. What do those two offer? Big indicators or swells of support that make a difference in the minds of the British?
No, because they're devolved, so they are locked off. Really, yeah. Devolution was part of Tony Blair's Tony Blair's Parliament. So they're kind of outliers. So they are locked off from the rest of the UK, really. But they are examples of the way that politics is going municipally in this country. And Reform, I thought, would have given Plaid Cymru a real, which would be the local, in a way, the local Welsh party, dual language and all of that. And I thought they would give them a really good run for their money. It surprised me that they haven't. And I'm really glad you brought it up, because not many people are talking about that. The general feeling is Starmer's goose is cooked and Reform are on their way.
Okay, so as best I can tell, Starmer hit the airwaves tonight in a desperate attempt. What did we see?
I take full responsibility. I'm not going to walk away. We have difficult decisions to make. I know what I did wrong, and I feel I can repeat those mistakes over again. Not exactly, but that sort of thing. So people have said, I saw this. He used the same words. And what the Channel 4 News, one of our news channels, said tonight was they cut all of those things he'd said before and then took me to what he said tonight.
Of course, yeah.
And counting, we have 55 MPs. No big ones yet. No ones where you think, apart from Angie Rayner, who used to be Keir Starmer's number 2, but who had to relinquish that post because of a scandal. She's come out at a speech tonight and said Andy Burnham should have been allowed to stand in my constituency. He was blocked.
Right. Okay.
So
okay.
55 MPs and counting are calling for Starmer not to go, but to at least tell us when he's going to
go. We have in Canada something going on that I wonder if is originated in, by the way, Keir Starmer, thank you for those great words of strength. We have a situation going on in Canada. I don't know if you've heard about, where Conservatives are crossing the floor to join the Liberal Party right there in Parliament. Similar acts of dissent happen in England in Parliament?
Yes, and generally it would be the Tories crossing the floor to join Reform. That was what would happen generally. the Greens and the Labour Party have not been so close. Now, the Greens don't have that many MPs in Parliament, so they don't have that many MPs in Westminster, and they've traditionally done better with the municipal elections. So you wouldn't generally see Labour crossing the floor to join Tories, the Conservatives, or the Greens. It is generally Conservatives joining Reform, and we've had a flurry of that recently, and we'll have some more. But Keir Starmer has done the thing which I said he would do before the election, and it didn't track, and I thought a party might jump on it. He said, I'm open to a pact, some kind of pact with the Tories, which he's done before, of course, when he was a leader of the Brexit Party. So that will track at some point.
Brexit was almost the lit fuse on Brexit at that moment. Was that coming together?
This is the outliers coming in, because nobody expected the vote Leave Party to win. Nobody expected that kind of conglomeration to win. Certainly not David Cameron, the Prime Minister at the time, who didn't run a very good campaign, just thought, people trust me. I'm the Prime Minister. What I say goes. And I was out on the night of the vote, and I was giving out leaflets and knocking on doors for staying in. And I spoke to some people who were campaigning for leaving, and they said, I've never campaigned politically before. This is an in-out vote. I can make a difference, and I feel connected to this. And I think that's the beginning of all of this. Well, let's give these a try. These have never done it before. Let's do something seismic.
Well, that makes perfect sense. As soon as you've had enough, and for a long period of time, the descent into hell in certain categories in England just continued under the same two parties' watch. Much like most of the world right now, humans are looking for human answers that will make their lives better. They don't want the standard. They don't want the status quo. They don't want the standard answers or the. Okay, so now this turns a torch to another topic. Torch, by the way, producer Nick, is British for flashlight. I have a list of them here so that I can relate better to Steve. Let's talk about this for a minute. Trump versus Starmer. Back on March 3rd, the quote is, he's not been helpful. Trump describing Starmer's approach to the Iran conflict. What is England's current stance on the Iran war right now?
He's no Winston Churchill. I'll tell you that. No Winston Churchill. Yeah. He isn't a Winston Churchill. And actually, keeping us out of the Iran conflict, and I saw a headline today of Iran saying to us, worst the effect of, you better not. It'll be bad for you if you do. He's kept us out of that war. Now, one of Labour's final eve of poll, actually, party political broadcasts was about, I kept you out. I kept you out the war. It doesn't help. But what he's trying to do, I think, is create an alliance in Europe again. The feeling is he'd like us to join Europe through the back door, say the Brexiteers. But I think it's generally something that I think he's talking about. And really, he's holding out. The special relationship, I don't know if it's taken a beating. I think it's kind of Trump. There's quite a lot of hyperbole with Trump, isn't there? But he is no Winston Churchill. And in some respects, thank goodness for that. But I think we feel here it's not our war. That's still popular. That's still very popular across the spectrum.
Well, that makes good sense. And, it's interesting that you talk about Starmer out there trying to build new relationships in Europe. And I've got to ask you, Brexit was a very heavy, very polarizing time in the UK. And, post-Brexit, I almost wonder if you have a better opportunity to establish more inter-border relationships, new trade because it's required, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, new defensive relationships, new alliances, even outside of NATO, that we're seeing many countries out there doing on the heels of this hyperbole and non-directorate day-to-day of Trump. Do you think that this is an opportunity Starmer should be grasping and saying, okay, look, being part of the European Union did not work, but we can have a relationship, and here it goes like this. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, he should be doing all of that. So he should be looking at Europe and saying, hey, I'm interested. Kind of like that flirting thing. Hey, want to come back to my place? We can talk about directorates, that kind of thing.
Maybe Steve, I've never heard your voice quite that way before.
No, but it's beautiful, isn't it? You can never unhear it now. That's what you'll hear all night.
I can't unring that bell.
So I think that kind of smooching up to them in a sort of, if only we could be together. It's that chaste love affair thing. Let's try and find a way next Thursday when my boss is away. That kind of thing. But yes, you're right. I think he should do that and say, we go everywhere. I think we said this last time. We go everywhere. We'll go to China. We'll go to India. We'll do all that. I think that after Brexit, we had Theresa May as our prime minister. We were focused on the Brexit deal. Then we had Boris Johnson, and we were focused on his hair and that his trousers didn't fit and he couldn't operate an umbrella. And then we had COVID. So people have kind of forgotten about all that. And Brexit isn't the open wound that it was because we've had COVID. But he should pick this up. But he's a beleaguered prime minister. And, we don't hear about our trade minister. In fact, I can't even remember who it is, Mike.
It's I'll encourage you to watch a show that we have upcoming about consultants in the government and what real politicians are able to do. I think you're probably okay not even knowing who that minister is. The consulting team, however, is worth noting. What gas is out of control here. I paid $1.89 on the weekend. Nick, can you believe that? $1.89. I think I got had per liter. That's significant here. What are some of the impacts you guys are feeling from the Iran war?
Well, it's often said, what will cause the British people to get up and not riot, but have their say? We're kind of after you. No, after you. Would you like a cucumber sandwich? Let's wait until after 11s. So we're a bit like that. So although people are going, petrol prices, gas prices are high, they're sort of going, oh, blimey, that's high, isn't it? It's not tracking as much. But I think that's because people are saying Starmer's got to go. And I think people are saying it's Starmer. And it's not. But I think everybody's putting their eggs in that basket and saying, if Starmer wasn't here, then everything would be fine. They've got a rude awakening. But I think they're saying, if he wasn't there, we could have a better time. So it's not tracking as much. I watched 3 news programs tonight. None of them said anything about petrol or gas prices.
It's interesting because we use that as the complaining post, I think, in a lot of ways here in Canada, even though we produce a lot of oil and we could be producing and processing a lot more. But it does seem to be one of the things we focus on. And then you think about it at the end of the month, okay, this war is going to cost me personally in my gas tank $150 more. It's not the end of the world. It's significant. But then, the cost of food, the supply chain interruption, all of that. And I wonder if maybe, and I kind of thought this going into the discussion with you, I kind of think we're anticipating the effects of war and then already pricing it. And I think England actually waits until the effects of war are in effect, and then you start to tax accordingly, or you start to raise prices accordingly.
Yeah, I don't think we lead anymore. I don't think we lead. The general feeling is we don't manufacture much. And we don't lead, it doesn't seem. And, we used to have an empire, don't you know? Chin Chin and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yes, we used to have one. Rule Britannia. Britannia rules the waves if we had any ships. So all of that. And I think we do wait. I think we think it's generally, if there are stories around this, it's generally about food prices. And they'll generally go to a food bank and a charity. And supermarkets will talk about putting their prices up. and they'll go to a small business. That's generally what they'll do. We aren't going crazy about this at the moment. And I always wonder, what is it that will make us finally go crazy?
Well, this actually could be it. Trade with the U.S. Last on my list here, Steve. And frankly, something we're all suffering through at the moment. We're on the doorstep of the renegotiation or re-sign up of CUSMA here, or UXMA, depending on what country you're from. What is the other one they say, Nick? USMA? USMA. Yeah, they take Canada right out of it. I think we should take a hint. But we're on the doorstep of that trade agreement. And with the rash of tariffs and arguments that go back and forth with U.S. trade at the moment, where does the UK position itself, and how are you feeling with negotiations with the U.S. on trade?
We're feeling quite sanguine, but then bear in mind, we've had the Mandelson fallout. So we've had the Peter Mandelson situation, with the ambassadorship, and then the connections to Jeffrey Epstein and all of that. So that's, as you say, if it bleeds, it leads. And that's the way it is. That's kind of dominated over the past, before the election, certainly, it's dominated political discourse. So we haven't had much discussion around trade. What we have had this evening, actually, this is something he's announced tonight, is that British Steel is going to be publicly owned. It will be nationalised.
Oh, wow.
This is an incredible thing. Now, if he's saying to us, now British Steel's been nationalised before, so it's easier to do. Trade unions, Community, the trade union, mainly for steel workers, has come out and obviously said this is fantastic. And Roy Rickus, the General Secretary, has done that. That's brilliant. We don't know how it's going to work. We don't know whether it's going to work. But as a flag, as planting your flag and saying, we make stuff now. We make stuff and we own it. That's something that certainly I'm interested in. But
absolutely, we talk about this here at TPL all the time. We owned Petro-Canada. We owned our own oil drilling, processing. We became leaders in the world, and we couldn't wait to sell it off. We build toll roads and we sell them to foreign companies. We don't manufacture anything. We're not in the business as a nation of doing much. To hear this is very interesting.
It is, and with, there's always been, there are several different kind of steel companies, and they're not all British Steel. But my understanding is there's a vibrant order book. So why would you not want to take control of that? But there is a discussion around. I saw someone on a news channel tonight saying, well, of course, it's an open checkbook, really. You don't know how it's going to work. You don't know how much money is going to have to be poured into it. And he was racing, as you just said, towards, when are we going to sell it back? When is someone going to buy it? Well, we don't have to do that. I'm very aged, and I remember in the 70s when we did own quite a lot. And the Labour manifesto in 1974, had 100 companies that were going to be nationalised at the front of the manifesto. It's an extraordinary way to go. If Starmer had more of a backbone, he'd do more.
I would agree with you. And at that moment, that manifesto led to the banking force that London relaunched. You suddenly had banking to do of your own manufacturing, your own economy, as it were. And that kind of led to the whole world doing banking through England and doing it again, frankly. So this might be a really good move.
It could be. Gordon Brown did this a while when he was Chancellor, in that he kind of brought in, not all of the railways, but he brought in the main overarching organisation, Railtrack it was called, I think, at the time. And he said, if I remember rightly, and I could be a bit fuzzy on some of the specifics, but he said to shareholders, this is what you get. Here's the amount of money you get, because the value of your shares can go up as well as down, as you know, because you're a shareholder. So you work, you play the markets. And I don't know of anybody who said, how dare you, I've lost money. Generally, it was understood that it needed to be taken back in. And he took some of it in. So it can be done. I think that in this country, certainly transportation, rail, people would love that. And water, people would absolutely love that to come back in.
It's very interesting to hear the steel one for sure, as some of the competing markets out there, Russia, China, other European countries. But historically, Britain has been a major I guess Scotland, England, probably even Wales, I don't know. But you've had major steel companies provide the world with some of the best and high grade structural steel available. It's interesting to me that would be the first stop for Starmer. That almost feels like a campaign underway.
It does. And that kind of, I'll bring this back in, folks. He doesn't need to do it with rail or water. He can just say he's interested in it. And people say, okay. But, in the past, you're quite right. And Wales was a fantastic steelmaking area, and slate as well. But we had coal. We had so
coal
much
was the other
coal.
one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we still have coal, and we're not digging it. We're not digging it out in that way. And this would be Thatcher closing the mines.
We're doing the same thing here. I mean, there are things that we don't want the environment to get that other countries are going to have to use, or they will starve or no longer be part of the global economy. And yet we shut down processing oil. We don't want to put pipelines in here. The one resource that we could do, we don't want to put mines in the ground unless it's a sure thing that we can do it in an environmentally friendly way, which is fantastic. In a fairy tale, but in an era where a country needs to come back, building something, doing something, being a manufacturer, being a resource for the world, much like England, we stumble, we stall, we trip over our own feet. It would be nice to see, even if it was done in greater measure, both these countries making an effort with their own resources.
Yes, and of course we've got oil under the North Sea, so it would be good to pump that sucker as well. That'd be good as well. One thing that in the government,
but let me just take a second here and say, please buy Canadian oil, because British oil, it stinks. It smells like fish. Thank you.
It's weak, and it doesn't. It's not great oil. It's like cod liver oil.
It's very. Don't drink that. Well, this is interesting. What's the government's positive spin overall on the economy there?
They're saying very little. So we know the figures aren't good. I think, as we said last time we met, Rachel Reeves, our Chancellor, who is not well liked, is not using yet the war in Iran to say, look, we've got problems. But there's still, they said when they came to power, it's going to be difficult. There's no money. And then when they came to power, they said, not only is there no money, there's no money. There's no money, no money. So it was all that. And although she's not said anything yet, there's always that fallback position. She's actually not been let out of her box for a while. Starmer's bought, after the day after the election disaster, he's brought back two people who were in Blair's government. Well, yeah, Gordon Brown, who is disliked in certain areas, and Harriet Harman, who is disliked in certain areas. It's not as if he's saying, look at all these lovely people that I'm bringing back who you loved. Look at all these people you don't like, I'm bringing back. So yeah, the concentration's on him. And I don't think he can bring Rachel Reeves in because she's really disliked. Again, we aren't getting angry about the economy. We're getting angry about you're not listening to me. But people, when they're interviewed, it's not kind of, but what are you not being listened about? I don't know, just not being listened to. Once it gets to that kind of wave level, then it doesn't really matter, does it? So we're all being a bit quiet on the economy. The general feeling is gloomy, but no one's saying, well, hang on a minute, we're performing really badly, and the pound in my pocket is not going very far. Not many people are saying that at the moment. I suppose there's a fallout to come, and then there'll be more of that. But there's a ready-made excuse with oil and petrol.
I should point out that on behalf of the whole world, thank you for making sure that Prince Andrew is no longer referred that way. I hope it inspires us to take a deeper look into making actions that other people mentioned in the files. By the way, our producer Nick mentioned as many times as 35 times in the Epstein files. But it's not true. I made that up. Well, look, Steve, I always enjoy speaking with you. Thank you for the update. And I'll look forward to speaking to you again shortly, if you don't mind. I think before we get into too much summer here, we better have another chat and see what's going on in the UK across the pond. Thank you, my man.
Thank you very much for letting me have a chat. And by the time we speak next, we might have Prime Minister Burnham or Prime Minister Streeting. Who knows?
Let's keep watch on what's going on during the elections. Thank you, Steve Swift. London, England, greatly appreciate it. We'll see you next time. And we'll see you next time right here on True Patriot Love. Don't forget, subscribe, tell a friend, and share the love. We'll see you next time.